Wade Rouse, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited. It's like old home week.
Yeah, so tell me about yourself. Are you from the Ozarks?
I am. I grew up in a tiny, tiny little town called Granby, Missouri. It's about an hour southwest of Springfield, kind of right in the corner of Missouri, Arkansas. And yeah, grew up there. My mother went to Drury, where I went undergrad. And, I came from a really working poor family. My grandmother, I write fiction under her name, Viola Shipman, was um, a working poor seamstress. She never finished high school. She never learned to drive. And she rolled pennies and saved change so that my mother could go to college and kind of change the course of our life. So she kind of embodied in me the importance of reading and books and education from the earliest of ages. So yeah, I still tie so much of my history to the Ozarks.
Wow, that's an incredible story. So speaking of your grandmother, you said that that is your pen name.
Yeah, it's my pen name, which is, I know it sounds very Victor Victoria in kind of a literary way, but she was overlooked in her time. She, being poor, not going to higher education, she really didn't have a voice in this world. But I listened to her and I heard her. She was the kindest woman I've ever met. She was the strongest woman I've ever known. She truly changed the course of my family's life, and I owe everything to her. And my whole reason behind choosing her name as my pen name was that even though her name was not said during her life, it will be said forever now. And I hope that people reconnect to their histories and their families as a result of that.
You've created a legacy and a wonderful tribute to your grandmother.
Thank you. I hope so. That's exactly what I wanted. Nobody listened to her voice, but I certainly did growing up.
Yeah, for sure. So how many books have you written as Viola Shipman?
It's up to 12 now, 12 novels. And before that, I started as a memoirist. I wrote nonfiction and I wrote 5 memoirs before transitioning. And, I just felt a calling to kind of honor women like my grandmother and my mother, really strong women um, from the Ozarks who kind of get knocked down by life, but get up and soldier on with as much faith and heart as they can muster. So it's all of the books are really a tribute to them, and also my grandmother's heirlooms and life lessons, and really focusing on the things that bring us together instead of divide us anymore.
Well, congratulations on writing so many books. Would the page turner be the 12th?
It is, yeah, subtle hint, and it's really my love letter to my grandmother. It's about how books and reading saved my life growing up. It's about using your voice in this world to be heard, so you could change not only the world but those around you. It's about judgment that we place on people in society without knowing anything about what's inside, simply by a look at the cover. It's about being an author today and the challenges that we face. But mostly, it's just about, if you love books, this is a book about books and how truly they save our lives and change us.
It's a book for the bookworms, and I have it here.
Yay!
Here it is. So, can you tell me a little bit about the premise of this book for those who don't know?
Yeah, it's about a young college grad who grew up in a very kind of elitist literary family. They're authors. Her parents are authors. They own a press in New York called the Mighty Pages. And she's always grown up reading with her grandmother, much like I did, kind of reading what's called fluff. Kind of the books that I used to pluck off the rounders at the grocery store with my grandmother that we would read together. And her parents kind of consider that less than literature. And it changed her life because she read it with her grandmother and she loved kind of the connection she felt. And during college, she wrote a book. She wrote a romance, which is a horror story for her because she doesn't want to tell her parents. And she kind of retreats after college to her grandmother, who she calls her Gigi, summer cottage. And she kind of finds comfort there with all of the books that they used to read together. And while she's there, kind of trying to gather the courage to tell her parents about her own book, she finds a secret hidden away in her grandmother's cottage that has the potential not only to upend her parents' literary careers in their publishing house, but also gets in the hand of a kind of a not so nice misogynistic author who tries to rule her world. So it's really about finding strength. It's about finding your voice in this world. My grandmother used to always tell me that I had a voice. She goes, you've got your own unique voice, and that will change the world. The secret is finding the power to use it, because we all grow up kind of trying to diminish our uniqueness just to fit in. And this book is about finding the strength to love yourself.
This book has everything that I love, right? It has a romance author who is surrounded by people who don't think that romance is technically like reading or educational by any means. But then you also have family secrets, and I love that.
Yeah, this has a big family secret in it. I love writing stories about family. Not only the things that connect us, but kind of the difficulties they're in. Because so many of the books that I write, um, there is someone that has faced something in their life that has set them back. Sometimes it's come from family, and it's about overcoming that. Yeah, so there's a huge secret in this, and a little bit of a mystery for the first time in my book that I wonder if readers can figure out. So yeah, I'm super excited about it. Some great endorsements, some wonderful book club picks. So a lot of good news to announce too.
Yeah, it's an exciting read for sure. And a lot of it I feel like pertains to today's world where romanticy is so popular, but there are so many people that look down on fiction readers and they're like, well, that's not real. You're not educating yourself. It's like, I am still reading 500, 600 pages of words.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You've really hit on the heart of the book too, which is what I call it genre shaming. You know, I've experienced it my entire career. I started out writing nonfiction, but it instead of being called just memoir, it became categorized in so many different ways. The same thing goes with my fiction. In this book, I ask why are books that center on women and women's issues, why are books that center on love, family, and friendship, those topics that are central to all of our lives, why why are they considered less than in literature? Because they are the books that really impact and change us the most. I'm kind of an insider, one of the few men in America that's writing these types of books. It's kind of me and Nicholas Sparks and Wally Lamb. And men write books and they're called literature. I write books like this and they're deemed, romance or chick lit or beach reads or summer sizzlers. And it annoys me to no end, because these are the books that I grew up reading that truly impact our lives, and they're central to our lives. So yeah, I explore that very deeply in the page turner.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn when reading, right? You have a romance book, you might learn morals. You have a fantasy book, you might learn a little bit about politics and the corruption of that. I mean, people who like look down on readers don't really understand. They're like, oh, it's just the same as, watching a movie. It's a little bit different because you have to use your imagination, right?
You do. I always say it's a movie in your mind. And what do we really all want in this life more than anything? We want love, and we want to be loved. And growing up a kid in the Ozarks in the 1970s was not the easiest. I always say, I came from my mother pretty much dressed like this, and I like to read and write, and that's not what a lot of boys in the Ozarks did at that time. So I really had a target on my back growing up. And my grandmother and my mother loved me unconditionally. And that is what my books explore and what the page turner explores. And what does that mean? That means you are loved without any conditions. And when you and when you learn to love yourself in that same way, then the power to change the world is endless. But we are seldom given that or shown that. And that's what my books provide. They also provide hope. I want to provide hope in this world. I don't want you to pick up one of my books and read about a murder, or raunchy words. I want you to be able to share this book with your granddaughter or your daughter or your book club and come out of it feeling enriched and hopeful.
I love that. And such a powerful message to readers everywhere, right?
It is, it's we are focused, as you know, as a journalist, so much today on what divides us.
Hmm.
And what I really like to focus on is what brings us together. My grandmother always said, um, life is as short as one blink of God's eye. But in that blink, we forget what matters most. And it truly is each other in the simplest of things. And that's the heart and foundation of every book I write.
And in the reading community, we have Book Talk, we have Bookstagram. I mean, these books that we love so much have created communities of people that just love to read, love these books. So there's no reason for hate, whether or not you like historical fiction, fiction, nonfiction, smut, read whatever you want. It's a reading community.
It is. I just got back this last weekend from a huge reading festival in Fort Myers. It's called the Southwest Florida Reading Festival. And I was surrounded by authors of every genre. I had Debbie Maycomer, who's written romance, Allie Hazelwood, who's probably one of the biggest romance writers going right now, Lisa Genova, who wrote Still Alice, that won the Academy Award for Julianne Moore. Um, Jean Kwok, who's an incredible literary author. I was on a panel with Jenny Colgan, who is one of my favorite writers, especially about the holidays. And that's exactly it. There were thousands of people there, and yet every single person, even if they had a genre that they preferred, were buying each other's books and kind of sharing in this community that connects all of us so deeply. And another theme of the page turner is just that, how books really connect us all. It doesn't matter what you read as long as you're reading.
Yep, bookworms have a great community. So the page turner, where can people find it?
Anywhere books are sold, it's you can go to my website, violashipman.com, and there's all the pre-order links out. As I always say, pre-orders are the most important thing for the author because they all count in week one sales. And you can check out my tour. I'm going to actually be semi-close to Springfield. I'm going to be in St. Louis, Missouri on April 17th at the county library. I'm doing 10 states in about 2 weeks and then continuing the tour through June. So I'll be on the road a lot, hugging and loving on a lot of readers.
There's a lot of good authors coming to St. Louis. We've got you, we have Geneva Rose, Lauren Roberts.
Yeah, St. Louis, the library there has knocked it out of the park, and it has two of the best indie bookstores in the nation. Between Novel Neighbor and Left Bank Books, they really attract an incredible crowd. And I lived in St. Louis for almost 20 years, so it's still a piece of my heart and soul, as is the Ozarks. So anytime I get to come back to Missouri, I'm always thrilled. I was almost in Springfield in May, but I just couldn't, my tour wouldn't allow me to come down for a night. I was going back to Drury to be a speaker, but I couldn't make it work. But I think next year I'll be back.
I see. Well, definitely don't be a stranger if you do come back. So anything after the page turner that you're working on that we can get a sneak peek of?
Yeah, I just finished my 2026 novel that will be out next spring, probably April, May, or June. And it's about, I'm going to call it, I'm not supposed to give too much away, but I'm calling it A Modern Day Golden Girls.
Ooh.
About four best friends over the age of 70 who live communally, and kind of test the bonds of their friendship through kind of family issues and health. And a lot of the things that the Golden Girls kind of scratched the surface on but never went deeper with. And each of the characters in the book has kind of a similar personality to the real Golden Girls. So super excited about that. And yeah, I'm working on my next one, which is going to be a holiday novel in 27. And I had a novel called The Secret of Snow that was recently optioned for film. So screenplay is done, and knock on wood, that we'll know more soon about that.
Congratulations on the option. That's a huge deal.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm excited. Hollywood either moves super fast or super slow. So this has been a slow roller, but I'm excited. It's a great screenplay, so I'm excited to see where it lands.
Well, I can't wait to see what the future holds for you and all your books. So, Wade, thank you so much, and pick up the page turner. It's a real page turner.